want you to sign a contract that means you have to go home with them.
This is the Comic Book Hall of Fame from Stan Lee. I signed Stan. I can't read the rest of it. Anyway, I signed it, and I'll probably regret it till my dying day.
Stan, I don't have a question, but like a lot of people, I just wanted to thank you.
Oh, you speak so loud and clear. Bless you. Yes.
These are my girls, and they couldn't wait to meet you, and it's generation after generation that you've influenced, and we appreciate it.
Well, that's very nice to hear. Thank you. Thank you. It's very funny because years ago when I would go to these comic book conventions, there were only little kids because they were reading comic books. Today you go, it's all grown-ups. Occasionally there's a little kid who's a grown-up couldn't get a babysitter. Everything has switched totally. But I don't mind.
Hi. I learned to read with Marvel Comics, and now I have a 1-year-old son. I was wondering if you had any words for little kids growing up with your comics.
See, it's the acoustics. The voice gets lost there when you sit for. You have a 1-year-old son, but I missed the rest.
I have a 1-year-old son now, and I was wondering if you had any advice for any of the upcoming generation of comic book readers.
Any advice for children?
Do I have advice for children? Not particularly, actually. You can't advise a child. You go up and do whatever. Yeah, I'd advise them to read Marvel Comics and go to see every Disney movie. If I have to give advice, I might as well profit by it. I hope the people at Disney learn what I said and give me a bonus.
Mr. Lee, I was wondering, were you able to keep the Fantastic Four robe from your appearance on The Big Bang Theory?
Was I able to?
Keep your robe from the Big Bang Theory.
Oh, I love being on The Big Bang. So what was the question?
If you were able to keep your robe.
Keep my robe.
Yes.
You know, honest to God, I don't remember. I know I tried. Did I? I love being on that show. Why they haven't invited me back? I'm sure everybody wanted to see more of me. What are you going to do? Right there?
I remember Stan Lee's soapbox. What made you start it and what made you stop posting?
Do you remember?
Memories about Stan Lee's soapbox.
What's the question?
Why did you start it and why did you stop it?
Oh. I felt as though I knew our readers because we got such great fan mail, and they talked about everything. The letters would talk about what was happening in the world today, who their favorite heroes were, and what they did in school that day. Like we knew each other. So I wanted to be able to respond to the fans. So I started the soapbox so I could be talking to them as well as reading what they had to say. And the nice thing about it, it was on a little page that didn't have any comic strips, so if nobody wanted to read it, they didn't miss anything. They just turned the next page. But, you know, they actually, I think it was the Hero Initiative. That's a charity where they give money to artists and writers who are down on their luck. I think they actually made a booklet out of all those soapboxes, and if you buy the booklet, it goes to the charity.
Oh, great.
I don't know where you buy it or how, so I don't know if anybody knows. I don't know if anybody was buying it. I know I got a free copy, that's why. Years ago.
Fearless Phil bought it. All right, that's good. Thank
Sir in
you.
the blue, you have a question?
Stan, how do you feel about Dr. Octopus being in control of Peter Parker's body?
Dr. Octopus being Spider-Man.
I wasn't aware of it until somebody told me, but I'll make a bet. I'll bet sooner or later Spider-Man becomes Spider-Man again. You know, you got to realize.
That's what I want to hear.
The writers and editors who are working on these books, they've been doing these stories. How many years has it been? We started Spider-Man in the early 60s. So they've got to come up with new ideas to hold your interest. So they killed Spider-Man, they'll divorce Spider-Man, they'll remarry him, they'll bring him back to life, they'll turn him into Dr. Octopus, whatever they think of, so that you'll want to read the next issue and see what happens. But you can be sure of one thing, no matter what happens to Spider-Man, he'll emerge triumphant and there will be other issues. or else the stockholders will kill the editor.
I just wanted to ask, you've created all these legendary characters. Are there any other characters you have in mind, or any?
Are there any I have in mind that I haven't created?
Really?
Not really. I didn't do them because they were things I just had to write. I did it because I was ordered to do it. My publisher said, Stan, you better give me another superhero word. I want to bring out a new book, give me an idea for it. I'm not the kind of guy who gets inspirations. If I'm not writing, I'm walking along wondering why this girl is taking those pens with me. What I'm doing here. I don't get inspirations. I don't walk along, wow, I got a great idea for a character. I usually think, wow, I'm late for dinner. I hope my wife is there.
Well, you kind of already answered for me. I was going to ask if all the characters you made since you started Marvel, if any of them inspired you, like after, if they were admired after somebody when you were growing up as a kid. Like, let's say you made like Spider-Man. Was it done after somebody you admired when you were growing up? Or?
I only hear keywords. I heard the word inspire. I heard the word, what was the word?
If there were any
Briefly.
certain characters that were inspired by other characters for you growing up.
Oh, that's a good question. Actually, I think everybody is sort of inspired or influenced by the things that they read when they're young or the movies they see. And I was a big reader, so I'm sure that a lot of what I read must have come out in the things I wrote, but it's just natural because you read something. For instance, I loved Sherlock Holmes. And I loved the characterization. I felt I knew the guy. I felt he really existed. So when I wrote about any characters, I tried to write about them as if they were real. In my mind, in my mind, Dr. Strange really exists. And Peter Parker still lives on Forest Hills, or wherever the hell he lives. And yeah, I think we're all influenced, if that was the question, by what we read when we're young, or old, or any age.
You got a young one right here. She loves Spider-Man.
Well, what?
The young one loves Spider-Man.
Well, I admire the young one's taste. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. It's a great pleasure. And I just wanted to ask you if there's anything you would have done different. If there's one thing you would have done differently, what would it be?
Good question. I never thought of that. Or maybe I would have been a better businessman and said, hey, I want to own some of these characters I'm writing. But I never thought of that. So that was foolish of me. But other than that, no, I was kind of happy the way things went.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
What's the most memorable moment in your career?
The most memorable one?
Most memorable moment in your career.
Oh, gosh. You know, I'm not good at that. I'm not like people say, who's your favorite something. I had so many memorable moments, you know. I remember one, it's not an important one, but years ago, you remember the director, the Italian director, Federico Fellini? Fellini came to visit me. Apparently, I learned he had been a fan, he liked reading the stories. And he walked in, and I had a narrow, there was a narrow, I know I'm boring, but you know.
Good dramatic.
There was a narrow hallway, and my office was at the end, so I saw him walking toward me. And he had on a black raincoat with the thrown over his shoulders. No Italian director would ever have the sleeve, his arm in the sleeves, it was thrown over. And he was with 4 other assistants. And they walked single file behind him in descending order of size. It was so funny. He was the tallest, and the next one, the next one, the next one, the next one. They were walking toward me. And I'm sitting thinking to myself, Federico Fellini is coming to see me? And we talked for a while, and he was very nice. We got a little bit friendly. And when my daughter went to Italy, he showed her around. So that was a moment that I remember because it was so unexpected. But there were so many so many things. Someday I'll write a book. Oh, I did write a book. So somebody asked me to write a biography, and I didn't have time. So the publisher got another writer to write the biography of me. It's supposed to be an autobiography, but he wrote it. I didn't like the way he wrote it, so I changed about 3/4 of it. I ended up rewriting it. So we had 1/4 of his and 3/4 of mine, and I called it a bio-autography. I didn't know what to call it. And that was a pretty dull story, wasn't it? Yeah, I can be dull, just like anybody else.
What is your most memorable or your favorite cameo?
My favorite cameo?
Yeah.
Oh, was it something before that?
Not favorite cameo.
No, she said something
Most
before you.
memorable or
Most
favorite
memorable
cameo?
or favorite cameo.
You see, you're not doing a good job.
I love myself out.
Again, I'm not good with favorites. I'm also my biggest fan. I like everything that is doing. But I kind of like the one in Spider-Man where I was a librarian and I'm stamping the books and kind of humming to myself with earphones on. And I don't know that Spider-Man and the Lizard are having a life and death battle right behind me. And I liked when I couldn't get into the wedding with the Fantastic Four because they didn't think I was Stanley. I liked them all. I liked when I was with 3 pretty blondes. I had my arm around them, my arms around all of them, and we were as close as we could be gathering. And I had a pipe in my mouth, so I would look like Hugh Hefner. And then Iron Man or Tony Stark walks by me and he says, "Nice going, Hef," or something like that. And I'm supposed to turn my head and look at him to acknowledge that he said that. But I had the pipe in my mouth. So you do a lot of takes. Every time I turned my head, the pipe hit the girl in the face. That's why I didn't wear a pipe in that scene, or smoke a pipe, or whatever you do with a pipe.
Out of all of the characters that you've ever written, which one was the hardest for you to write?
Oh, none of them. No, they were all, once I knew what I wanted, it was easy to write them. I don't recall having any difficulty really with any of them. I'm sorry, I could have given you a much more exciting answer, but I am capably unable of not to tell the truth. I said that wrong, did I? I'm capable, unable to tell a falsehood. And they're all, the tough thing is deciding who the character will be, what his or her power will be, what personality I'll give the person, what hang-ups of them. But once I got all that in my mind, easy work. For instance, I've got all of you pretty much pegged. So I can talk to you easily now. None of you are any tougher than the other.
Gentleman, Mohawk.
How was it working with Jack Kirby?
Did you say the gentleman with the mohawk?
Yeah.
You'll always be known as the gentleman. Anyway, what did the gentleman say?
How was it working with Jack Kirby?
Wonderful. Jack really should have been a movie director. You know, the way I would do the story, I would just give him an outline. I didn't write a finished script because I didn't have time. So I would give him an outline of what I wanted the story to be, and he could draw it. And that went for all the artists I worked with. They could draw it any way they wanted to, as long as they followed what I told them. So Jack always picked out the most dramatic shot for any situation, the most interesting shot, drew it beautifully. He was great, but I was lucky. All the artists I worked with were great. There was Kirby, Ditko, Romita, Buscema, Gil Kane, on, Gene Colan, and they told stories so beautifully with pictures. And then I would get the pages all drawn based on the outline I gave them, and I would put in the dialogue and captions, but looking at those pictures, it was impossible not to put in good dialogue, because the pictures sort of told me what they were saying just by looking at them. So Kirby was great. They were all great. I liked him so much I gave him the nickname King. I used to write Jack King Kirby. I was so generous.
Next Mohawk.
Got two more books.
What influenced you to start writing comic books?
What influenced you to start writing comics?
Greed. No, actually, I applied for a job when I was in my late teens. I just gotten out of high school. And I heard there was a position open at this publishing company. And they published movie books and confession books and men's books and sport books and so forth. And I didn't know what the position was, but I thought I wanted to be a writer, so I went there. And I found out they had an opening in their comic book department. I figured, well, it's as good as anything. And my first job was filling the inkwells. In those days, they didn't have colorway pens. And erasing the pages and going down and getting them. And that's how I started. I never expected to be in the comic business for long. But after a while, the two guys who hired me were Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. They were working in a team. And after a while, they left. They were actually fired. It was a long story, but they left. And I was the only guy left in the department. It was a young, little department. So the publisher, Martin Goodman, said to me, can you keep things going until I hire a grown-up? Well, when you're 18 years old or so, what do you know? I said, sure, I can do it. And he never hired a grown-up. I stayed there and I kind of ran the publish, and then I started writing them. It was all accidental. I thought I'd become a great novelist, and instead of talking to people like you who are into comics, I'd be in some stuffy room somewhere talking to people who like novels, and it wouldn't have been nearly as much fun. They don't know how to retort to that.
I apologize.